It's been a bruising Republican primary season with a fierce debate underway about what the party stands for. But after almost 4 years in control of the White House, shouldn't the Democrats be asking the same question? You're watching Inside Story US 2012 from Washington. Hello, I'm Shihab Rutansi. He can hardly campaign on being the candidate of change this time. 4 years on, President Obama appears still to be honing his campaign message as he seeks re-election. It's not just Republicans, though, making the case that Obama needs to be challenged on his record. Some within his own party seem unconvinced by what they've seen during his first term. Many on the left say the president has positioned himself too far towards the Republicans and been too eager to give in to their demands. On issues ranging from his healthcare bill to Israel and the still operational Guantanamo Bay, President Obama has been accused of not standing his ground. And having been elected amidst a melting economy, he's also been criticized for not being tough enough on Wall Street. Former financial executives continue to play key roles in his cabinet. Last year, there were calls for him to face a primary challenger of his own, not to unseat Obama as candidate, but to re-energize the Democratic Party and ensure, if re-elected, the president knows he can't simply return to business as usual. Here's our White House correspondent, Patty Culhane.
President Barack Obama wants to be able to stay in this House for another 4-year term, but to get re-elected, he needs the Democratic base to come out and support him. And the word many in the base use most often to describe his administration is disappointed. They're angry over his health care plan. They don't feel it went far enough. They're angry about his national security policies that some describe as Bush-like. Guantanamo Bay actually still open. And they're upset about some of the financial compromises he's offered to make that would target some of their most cherished entitlement programs. There was a recent poll that 26% of Democrats said they wanted to see someone else on the ticket. Now, that isn't going to happen. But if you talk to analysts, they'll say one of the president's biggest concerns in this election year is there is a huge enthusiasm gap this time around.
So is President Obama taking his political base for granted? To discuss this, here in the studio is Brendan Daly, who was the communications director for former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Lynn Sweet, the Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times, and from New York, John R. MacArthur, the publisher of Harper's Magazine. Brendan Daly, first of all, then, it is too late now for a primary challenge against Barack Obama, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And
thank goodness for that, because the last two incumbents who lost in their re-election run had serious challenges in their own primary. Both Jimmy Carter on the Democratic side and George H.W. Bush on the Republican side. So
we'll perhaps try and get into
I think it would be detrimental to the party if there had been a primary.
Lindsay, what happened? There was a great deal of discussion, certainly at the end of last year, a lot of articles about the need, again, not necessarily to unseat President Obama, but at least to get a debate going as to how he's been doing.
Well, the debate within the Democratic family has been going on for a few years now, but there is never any serious or even semi-serious talk about Obama not leading the ticket. He's just too strong as the leader. What you heard in the United States and that still comes out, and I think it's just fantasy talk. Some people were talking about maybe having Hillary Clinton run for vice president, swapping jobs with Joe Biden, though that's not really based in any political reality.
And perhaps wouldn't please many of those in the base who are disgruntled about some of the issues we've already discussed. But there was another plan, John MacArthur. Various leading progressive figures, including the former editor of Harper's Magazine, in fact, said that they'd run like 6 candidates in primaries. Again, not to unseat President Obama, but to have a real debate on 6 different issues: labor, poverty, the environment, financial regulation, human rights, foreign policy, and so forth. What happened to that? Did that fizzle out? It seemed to be getting quite a lot of support from some significant figures on the left in the United States.
Well, the left is pretty much caved in to the omnipresence of Barack Obama. They don't have the stomach to take him on. The only time there was a real serious discussion, or looked like there was going to be a discussion about a primary challenge, was during the debate about the debt ceiling, where this is back in August, where a couple of left-leaning congressmen, Bernie Sanders and John Conyers, went off the reservation and said some very angry things. Conyers said notably that that the Republican leadership hadn't asked for Social Security cuts or Medicare cuts. Obama had offered to make them as part of a compromise deal. Then they got a little angry. I think Conyers mouthed off a little bit too much and was shut down. Sanders was talking a little bit about finding a primary challenger. But then, to your point about whether he's too strong a leader, Lynn, the point is he's not too strong a leader. He's the perfect follower. In other words, he does what the leadership of the party wants him to do. He raises money. He goes along to get along. He maintains the status quo. He doesn't mess with the fundraising machinery, which is largely based on money from Wall Street, corporations, lobbyists, and lawyers, notwithstanding all the small contributions that came in the last time around. So he's the perfect party leader in the sense that he doesn't take any leadership. He doesn't mess with Max Baucus or Chuck Schumer or any of the prerogatives of the barons who run the party. And don't forget, the guy comes from Chicago. His real base is the Chicago political machine,
Absolutely
the Democratic
not. Rick,
machine in Chicago. That's his base.
I respectfully disagree with you, and I know you're my former colleague at the Sun-Times, but one of the interesting things, and international viewers might be interested in knowing, that as Barack Obama's political career really came out of a Chicago political system that included him not being part of the machine politics there. Though as the years went by, we know his advisors came out of that milieu. But I would think your frustration that I'm hearing, and I read your article about dumping Obama, comes from your disappointment in the policies he has embraced as leader and the things he's not doing that you wished he had done.
Well, actually, John MacArthur, perhaps
I'm not. No, wait, no. Let me clarify. I'm not disappointed. I never expected anything from him. There are some naive liberals and people on the left who are very disappointed. Knowing where he came from, knowing what his background was, knowing how close he was to the investment banking community, how much he admired people like Robert Rubin.
Absolutely.
I knew he was never going. I knew he never was going to do
Brendan
anything
Daly, then,
controversial.
the mask having come off, perhaps to some, after his first term, shouldn't he now have to defend his first term? He shouldn't simply have to position himself in opposition to a frightening Republican Party. He has to now tell those people who are rather disappointed in him, and this is a widespread sentiment that we hear, why he should be given another chance.
Can I just inject a few facts into the debate here, because I think that seems to have been lost here. If you look at every poll, Democrats support this president by more than 80%. More than 80%. There's not a single poll, name me one, that says they don't. Yes, they're disappointed. I have it in my own family. I am disappointed in certain things. I wish he'd embrace gay marriage. He didn't do that. I wish he would close Guantanamo Bay. He didn't do that. There's a number of things that I wish he had done that he didn't do. But let's not forget what he did do. He passed health care reform. It wasn't what the liberals wanted. It wasn't single payer. It wasn't.
It was what Gingrich, Romney, and the Heritage Foundation suggested.
Exactly, right. But yet it's still got accused of being socialist takeover and all that nonsense. But he did pass that. And yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make it work. But he passed that. He did pass Wall Street reform. When I was in the Congress, Congress passed a stimulus bill. It wasn't big enough. It didn't do enough. But at the time, that was as big as we could get it to pass to try to help the economy. And clearly the hole that we were in was much bigger than the stimulus could repair.
John MacArthur?
Could we go over that point by point?
No, actually, that's
nonsense. First of all, he turned over the health care plan, so to speak, to Max Baucus, who is the close friend of the insurance lobby. And Liz Fowler, the former WellPoint executive and lobbyist, is the one who wrote the bill. 30 million subsidized insurance policies for the poor is a great deal for the insurance companies.
Okay, John MacArthur.
On financial reform, the derivatives are still not regulated. Dodd-Frank does not regulate derivatives. It's a proposal that is still being vetted by the lobbyist and the SEC. If you want to know where the pedal meets the metal meets the pedal or whatever, it's when you discuss things like Glass-Steagall. We talk about Obama being too weak or too friendly, too eager to find bipartisan deals. Well, on Glass-Steagall, which is the linchpin in the regulatory system that was eliminated
retail
in
and investment
1999, which separated investment banking and commercial banking. Obama gets into office, and who proposes the restoration of Glass-Steagall? Bipartisan. John McCain and Patty Murray.
All right, John MacArthur, Brendan Daly, I'm going to have to be
Democrat
strict
from Washington.
Because we discussed all
Obama
these.
steadfastly opposes
John,
the restoration
just
of
a moment.
Glass-Steagall.
John, I mean, so these are discussions that we have almost on a daily basis here at Al Jazeera. We go through all these. I think what we're trying to figure out there is, I mean, those are clearly the issues which are so disconcerting to the base, which Obama supporters say, look, you're missing the point and so forth. Right. We know those. But surely, there's such a widespread sense of disappointment that John MacArthur is explaining there and embodying. Lynn Sweet, isn't there a problem? Brendan Daly is rather blasé about the possibility of disillusionment amongst the base. When you go around the country, do you see huge eagerness, despite the fact that in the polls they're going to vote for Obama? Isn't there a problem? Wouldn't some of this, a proper airing of some of these issues be quite useful for the Democrat Party, perhaps?
You put a lot in that question. Let me try and help sort out what's going on. The real difference in the campaign when we get down to November will probably be independent and swing voters a lot more than whether or not a disgruntled
So the base doesn't matter?
No, the base absolutely matters because you need that to get turned out. And I think the gift that the president has right now is time. He does have no primary opponent, and he
wouldn't a primary opponent help?
No. It wouldn't. The point is, it didn't happen. So let me spend my little bit of time here to tell you about what is happening rather than what isn't. Obama, with this gift of time, can do a better job of selling his accomplishments, explaining what he did do, and figuring out a way to address the concerns. I have a sense that Rick will never be satisfied, but here's what the Obama team never, I think, properly addressed, and that is the campaign in 2008 had such high expectations, set high expectations among people, even though Obama himself said, he saw during the campaign, I covered many events when he said, come down to earth. I'm not promising everything, I'm promising something.
Just
I'm paraphrasing. But you had a lot of people come in who embraced him for two words, hope and change. Washington is, I think, is a neither good nor bad. It depends who inhabits it and who rules. But everyone runs against Washington. Obama did, the Republicans are now. I think his biggest task is to deal with how do I sell myself as having done something with people who had wildly unrealistic expectations.
Have an example of that.
That's exactly right. I just
wait,
want to echo Lynn's
what
point.
is wildly?
John, you had your point. Let me just for a moment here. That's certainly correct, and certainly the sense of disappointment is there. I'm not disputing that, and I'm not trying to be blasé about that. I'm just saying in the end, I think they will vote for him. And yes, they need to be enthusiastic, and you need a big turnout because Lynn is right. The election is going to be won or lost in the independents, but that presupposes you have a base that turns out for you. So you need to have that.
Let's have an example then of what we have to expect. We have an example from that speech in Kansas. There's this terrible word which is used in D.C. all the time. It seems of pivoting. It was seen as a pivot to populism again, for him back on the campaign trail. Here's a snippet of this speech that I think we're going to see similar themes from emerging over the coming year.
Roosevelt also knew that the free market has never been a free license to take whatever you can from whomever you can. He understood that the free market only works when there are rules of the road that ensure competition is fair and open and honest. And so he busted up monopolies, forcing those companies to compete for consumers with better services and better prices. And today, they still must. He fought to make sure businesses couldn't profit by exploiting children or selling food or medicine that wasn't safe. And today, they still can't.
So we're back to sort of idealistic principles that the Democrat Party and actually in that case the Republican, the American politics should be about. John MacArthur, though, the problem with actually having to make this pivot, a populist pivot, is you actually admit that you weren't facing in that direction in the first place. I mean, does that convince the base that next time it's going to be different, do you think?
Well, talk is cheap, you know. It's a populist pantomime. And I have to get back to what Lynn said about wildly unrealistic expectations, or was the other gentleman? What's wildly unrealistic about raising the capital gains rate from 15% to 25%? In all the screaming about Mitt Romney paying 15%, they don't point out that it's thanks to Barack Obama and the Democrats that the capital gains tax stayed at 15%. Obama proposed during the campaign that we raise it to 25%, but as soon as he got in office, Baucus and Schumer said, forget it. You raise the capital gains to 25%, and you're going to shut off a huge amount of campaign money. You can't do that. You're going to ruin it for us.
Brendan Daly.
So he didn't do it. And now everyone says, oh, it's tax equity and tax inequality. Obama can say anything now because he can just say, well, I can't pass anything because the Republicans have the majority in the House. When he had a solid majority in both houses, he sat on his hands. He did nothing. He didn't touch Glass-Steagall. He didn't raise capital gains. He caved in on raising the top marginal income tax rate. He caved in on the
Brendan
debt
Daly,
ceiling.
doesn't he owe it to the base?
It gets to be a very sad joke, and he escalates in Afghanistan. For all the people who thought he was the anti-war president, he gives us a bigger,
Doesn't he owe it to the base then?
war-
Doesn't President Obama owe it to the base then to
Afghanistan?
face a challenger who can put some of these arguments to him, with Obama having to stand up for himself? Wouldn't that
keep
be
coming back to the
healthy?
primary.
What's the Democratic Party so frightened of?
The Democrats are frightened about it, that someone could have run if they wanted to. They chose not to. I mean, there could have been a primary. There wasn't one because people didn't choose to do that. These issues should be discussed. I'm not saying they shouldn't be discussed. All of these are legitimate issues. Certainly Afghanistan, I know people are unhappy about that. I'm unhappy about that. I've been there. I went there with the speaker. What are we doing there? But on the other hand, just to defend the president for a moment on that, he did say we should focus on Afghanistan and we should withdraw from Iraq. He has withdrawn from Iraq. He did increase in Afghanistan, and now he's starting to withdraw. I think he should withdraw significantly faster than he is now because there's really no reason for us to be there, particularly now that we've gotten Osama bin Laden.
Lynn Sweet, what happens? I mean, do you really think?
But if he had a primary challenger, maybe he would withdraw faster.
Well, maybe there should have been one, but that's too late. I mean, that's like that's a nice wish. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Paul.
Well, why didn't it happen then?
Well, why didn't it happen? Lynn Sweet, why didn't anyone?
Because
these are
he's
issues.
got
No
a
one,
lot,
again,
you
no
know,
one wants to unseat him, but they want to have an honest debate about this, not simply give the president a free pass just because everyone's scared of the
party-
Republicans. Why can't that happen?
Well, okay, so just so the viewers know, it's too late because all
Yeah.
the states have different
We've
deadlines.
established, right.
So, but to explain why it never happened is, even though there is discontent among some of the base, it never went to the point where anyone
It's not about the
of any.
machinery of the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm just talking about there was no Democrat of note who thought that the situation was tough enough that they wanted to run. It's almost that simple. That what Obama.
If they thought there was an opening and they would run, they would have run.
Right.
But
I
they
mean, the
didn't see
system,
opening.
it is
But
kind
an
of in
opening
that
to
way.
even have a discussion? They couldn't see an opening for a
Well,
discussion?
no, actually, no, because it takes a lot to run for president. If you have, it's a lot, and some people can run on a shoestring. We're seeing that on the Republican side with Ron Paul, though actually he's caught on and he has some real money. But I think in a way, this is almost a market question. America, the market sets some prices and houses and stuff. If Obama was doing that terrible a job among the base, you might have seen it. Here's where it has manifested some of this discontent. You have some unions taking their money into some of these third-party super PACs. Yes, they're allied with the president, but then they could control the messaging a little more. They could maybe put pressure on the issues they care about. It's a little more subtle. The main issues right now, the main problem for the president is the jobless rate. That is the biggest
absolutely.
threat to him,
Yes.
far more than whether or not he did enough on banking. And there are things we could talk about where the Obama White House just went too slow, particularly in addressing the housing crisis in America, from making it easier for people to refinance, to keep their homes, to the mortgage mess. But right now, the Obama team has to deal with, and they've been trying to for a long time, to deal with the jobless rate. That is where they're at.
Let's take
And that's
jobless
where the election is going to be won or lost.
But on the jobless rate, he's not dealing with one of the main job killers, which he also said he would deal with during the 2008 campaign, which is the free trade lobby, the free trade orthodoxy. NAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China are continuing to push jobs, project jobs out of the country.
So John MacArthur,
to China and
without
Mexico.
someone pushing him,
And Obama will not touch the issue because, again, the people who fund the Democratic Party love so-called free trade. They think NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China and low tariffs are great. Meanwhile, I think we've lost more than 2 million manufacturing jobs thanks to NAFTA in the last 15 years. It's astonishing, and nobody will discuss it. Nobody even within the party, people like Sherrod Brown, they're afraid to bring it up because they think they'll get clobbered.
So this is about the machinery of the party, then, you think, John
Byron
MacArthur?
Dorgan, here, we should talk about the party because Byron Dorgan, the senator from North Dakota who predicted what would happen in 1999, 2000, when they repealed Glass-Steagall, predicted it on the Senate floor. He's out of Congress now. The Democratic Party should have hoisted him on their shoulders. In theory, he should be a hero. He predicted everything that came to happen in 2008. He's out. He's out of the party because they don't want him.
No,
he's
he's out of the party because he retired. That's just absurd.
He retired because he had no future
John MacArthur,
in the
if you
party.
give us a moment.
Give me a
gave
moment.
up. He
I
gave
think
up.
I have an insight that maybe could help put what we're talking about. Everything Rick is saying are very legitimate complaints and observations that he makes from the perspective that he has. But in the political issue right now is that President Obama, as Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, the thing people forget during the campaigns is that they're not running for king. They run for president, and they have to work with Congress, like it or not, which is why I do urge everyone in America when they vote to take some of these campaign promises with a lot of skepticism, because most of the stuff everyone's talking about can't be executed.
Brendan Daly, in the absence of a real debate within the party, which clearly, many within the party feels needs to be had, what are people voting for other than not being Republican? What's the difference at the Democratic National Convention between that and the nominating committee of the National People's Congress in China anointing its new set of leaders?
That is just an absurd question. A Democrat, the reason that we are Democrats is because we embrace the wide spectrum of ideas. We have liberals.
Where's the wide spectrum being embraced? If any debate is being shut down by anyone,
because look at the Congress. When my boss was the Speaker of the House, my old boss Nancy Pelosi, she had to try to navigate that between a liberal base. She's a progressive, a liberal. She's very proud of that.
Navigation behind closed doors, perhaps.
Oh, no, it was pretty open.
I'm talking about closed doors. I'm talking about trying to get a bill passed.
Right.
You also had a lot of the members who were in tough districts who were more conservative, and so therefore a lot of things that she personally wanted to see pass couldn't pass because she didn't have the votes in Congress. For instance, on single payer, she would have preferred single payer.
Right.
She'd prefer campaign
behind closed doors. No,
it's not. What do you mean it's not behind closed doors? We talk about it all the time. That's just not true. That is absolutely not true. And anybody who wants to talk about it can talk about it on television. They can write about it anywhere they want. They can give speeches about it. There's nobody saying you can't talk about this. No, you're not dismissed as extremist. These are legitimate ideas that should be discussed.
Actually,
I would actually, as I said, like to see single payer. I'd like to see campaign finance reform where you have.
And the polls show that most people do, and yet somehow that's not led into.
Well, because that's a bigger problem with our whole political system.
Well, that's the interesting point. John MacArthur, doesn't this speak then to a wider problem of the political system? Might those who are preserving the system be being rather short-sighted because they're hastening perhaps the breakup of a two-party system in which some of these issues aren't really discussed, and there isn't, the sort of ideas you're talking about don't get the airing within the party system.
They don't see it that way. They see it as a closed system that they control, and they're very happy with the way things are. They're happy with their control. Now, it's possible that Mitt Romney will win because so many people are disappointed with Obama. And I guess that would be a bad thing for the party barons, the leaders. I'm talking about people like Max Baucus and Chuck Schumer, who are, they're very, very close to the Republicans in their ideology. I don't think they'd be that upset if Romney was elected, frankly. They might lose some patronage. They might lose a little bit. They might lose a committee chairmanship. But right now it looks like status quo benefits both parties. And people like Baucus are very cynical. I'm telling you, he's happy with the situation. He's not looking to increase popular participation in the electoral process.
You give an awful lot of power to Max
He's quite
Baucus.
pleased with the way things have turned
not
out.
There.
And he's a real champion fundraiser for the party. He raises a lot of money from
Americans
finance.
don't know who Max
insurance.
Baucus is.
Max Baucus controls
They
the party.
should know who he is. No, but he's a very important player in the party.
He is an important player in the party. I'm not disputing that.
The people who dissent, The
I'm afraid
people
we're
who
out of time.
dissent, like Byron, excuse me, the
John-
people who dissent, like Byron Dorgan, get pushed out.
John
He did-
MacArthur,
he
we're gonna leave it
retired.
there.
The
Brendan
Democrats
Daly.
wanted him to run again because that's
And
a
Lynn
seat the
Sweet.
Democrats now lost because he retired.
Brendan Daly, thank you very much. Lynn Sweet, John MacArthur. That's it from Inside Story in Washington, D.C. Do follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where you can find more information about the program. We want to hear from you. Tell us what stories you think we should be covering. Send your ideas to us directly at insidestory@aljazeera.net.